Every shadow hides a secret. Every silence tells a story. Some mysteries were never meant to be uncovered, but tonight, you're about to witness one. Welcome to Taka Tales. If you've ever gone camping deep in the Appalachian Mountains, you've probably heard the same advice. Never wander off the trail after dark. Never whistle into the woods. And if you hear someone calling your name, make absolutely sure you know who's speaking before you answer. I laughed the first time I heard those warnings. I thought they were old mountain stories. The kind of folklore people told around campfires to scare tourists. Now, I wish I'd listened. My name is Ethan. 3 years ago, my best friend Mason convinced me to spend 5 days backpacking a remote section of the Appalachian Trail in western North Carolina. Neither of us were beginners. We'd hiked across national parks, camped in deserts, survived snowstorms, crossed rivers. We knew how to read a map, use a compass, and stay calm when things went wrong. Getting lost wasn't something either of us worried about. Our goal was simple: 5 days away from work, no emails, no traffic, no phones, just mountains, rivers, and maybe a few trout. The first 2 days were perfect. Warm afternoons, cool evenings, clear skies. The leaves were changing, turning the mountains red, orange, and gold. The deeper we traveled, the fewer people we saw. By the third day, we hadn't seen another hiker since breakfast. That was exactly what we'd wanted. Until late that afternoon, we found a small clearing beside a creek. It wasn't an official campsite, but it was flat and dry, with enough space for both tents. Mason dropped his backpack. This is perfect. I looked toward the surrounding trees. Yeah. Something about the place bothered me. I couldn't explain why. The forest was incredibly quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. There was a difference. Mason started setting up the tents while I collected firewood. As the sun disappeared behind the ridge, the forest seemed to change. The birds stopped singing. The wind disappeared. Even the creek sounded quieter. I stood there holding an armful of branches. Mason. Yeah? Does it feel weird out here? He looked at me and laughed. Weird how? I don't know. I looked into the trees. Like we're being watched. Mason smiled. That's because you're finally away from civilization. He went back to the tent. I tried to forget about it. We cooked dinner, talked about work, argued about football. Mason complained that I had packed too much food. I reminded him that he was the one who'd eaten most of it. By 10 o'clock, the fire had burned down to glowing coals. We crawled into our separate tents. Mason usually snored within minutes. That night, he didn't. Sometime after midnight, I suddenly woke up. I didn't know what had woken me. I just opened my eyes and immediately noticed the silence. No insects, no frogs, no wind, nothing. I checked my watch. 2:41 a.m. Then I heard it. Ethan. A whisper, very close, just outside my tent. I smiled. Mason? No answer. I assumed he'd gotten up for some reason. Maybe he needed help. Maybe he wanted to talk. I reached toward the zipper. Then I stopped. Mason's tent was still completely closed. I could see it through the thin wall of my tent. No flashlight, no movement. I waited. Then the voice came again. Ethan. It sounded exactly like Mason. Same voice, same tone, same quiet way of saying my name. Except it wasn't coming from his tent. It was coming from the woods behind me. I grabbed my flashlight. My hand was shaking. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Sound travels strangely through forests. Maybe Mason had walked farther away. Maybe another hiker had wandered into our campsite. Then, tap, tap, tap. Something hit Mason's tent. 3 slow knocks. I heard Mason immediately. Ethan? You outside? No. You? No. Silence. Then the voice came again. Ethan. This time it was somewhere between our tents. Mason whispered through the nylon wall. Don't answer it. I froze. What? Don't answer? Why? My grandfather grew up around these mountains. His voice became quieter. He told me something. What? If something in the woods calls your name? He paused. And you know it isn't your friend. Don't answer. I wanted to laugh. But I couldn't. For the next 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then we heard footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They were moving around our campsite, slowly, 1 step at a time. Whatever was outside wasn't running. It wasn't sneaking. It simply walked, a complete circle around our tents. Then another, then another. The footsteps stopped beside my backpack. I could hear breathing. Slow, steady, almost unnaturally steady. I stared at the tent wall. Then the voice spoke again. But this time, it sounded like Mason. Ethan, come look at this. I closed my eyes. It was perfect. The exact tone Mason used whenever he discovered something interesting. I whispered, Are you talking? His answer came from inside his tent. No. His voice was shaking. Don't look outside. The voice outside laughed. Just once. A quiet little breath. Then silence. A few minutes passed. The footsteps started again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They moved toward Mason's tent, then stopped. Mason. The voice outside sounded exactly like me. Mason didn't answer. Ethan, he whispered. I'm here. The thing outside spoke again. Mason. This time it sounded like his grandfather, an old man's voice. Slow, weak, almost pleading. Mason, come outside. Mason stopped breathing. I heard him whisper, That's my grandfather's voice. I didn't know what to say. His grandfather had been dead for years. The voice called again. Mason! Come on. Don't leave me out here. Mason covered his mouth. Neither of us moved. Then the voice changed again. This time, it sounded like me. Ethan, open the tent. I stared at the zipper. Every instinct in my body told me not to touch it. The voice became softer. You know me. I heard Mason whisper. Don't listen. Then the thing outside said something that made my blood run cold. It said, You're both awake. The footsteps continued until dawn. Neither of us slept. We didn't even speak. When the first sunlight finally appeared through the trees, everything changed. Birds began singing. The creek sounded normal again. The wind returned. It was as if nothing had happened. We finally stepped outside. Nothing looked disturbed, no damaged equipment, no missing food, no broken branches. Then Mason looked down. Ethan? There were footprints around our tents, bare feet, human-shaped, dozens of them. They circled both tents, over and over. But there was something wrong. There were no footprints leading into the campsite. None leading away. The tracks simply started beside the tents and ended there. As if whoever had made them had appeared in the middle of the clearing. Mason stared at them. Those are human footprints. I know. Where did they come from? I looked toward the woods. I don't know. We packed everything. No breakfast, no coffee, nothing. We left. About an hour later, we encountered another hiker. He was an older man with a gray beard and a faded green jacket. He stopped when he saw us. His eyes moved between our faces. Then he asked, You boys hear something last night? Neither of us answered. He nodded. Thought so. Mason looked at him. You know what it was? The man adjusted his backpack. Doesn't matter what folks call it. What is it? He looked toward the trees. Something that's been here longer than any trail. I laughed nervously. That's not very helpful. No. He looked directly at me. It isn't, then he said. Just remember one thing. If it ever sounds like somebody you love. He tightened the strap on his shoulder. Keep walking. Then he continued down the trail. We never saw him again. For the rest of the hike, neither of us talked much. Eventually, we returned home. Life went back to normal for a while. 6 months later, I was cleaning my garage when I found the backpack I'd taken on that trip. One side pocket felt heavier than I remembered. I reached inside and pulled out a small digital voice recorder. I'd completely forgotten about it. We had brought it to record birds and streams. I replaced the batteries. Most of the recordings were normal. Running water, bird song, our conversations, the fire, Mason laughing. Then I found one recording with a timestamp, 2:43 a.m. I stared at the screen. That was only 2 minutes after I'd woken up. I pressed play. At first, silence, then my voice. Mason? I froze. A pause. Then Mason's voice answered. Ethan? My stomach tightened. According to both of us, neither of us had said those words. The recording continued. Ethan, come outside. Then another voice. Mine. Who's there? I stopped the recording. I never said that. Not aloud. I called Mason. He answered immediately. Before I could explain anything, he said, You found yours. I froze. How did you know? Because I found mine. You had a recorder too? Yeah. What was on it? He was silent. Then he said, My recording ends the same way. I asked, What does yours say? He hesitated. Mine has one extra sentence. What sentence? His voice became quieter. It says, Next time, one of you will answer. Neither of us spoke. I finally asked, Do you still have it? No. What happened? I destroyed it. Why? Because it started recording by itself. I felt cold. What do you mean? I threw it into a river. And? It came back. I didn't know what to say. Neither did he. We agreed never to return to the mountains. We never did. At least, not together. Months passed. Then something strange started happening. My phone began receiving voicemails. No phone number, no timestamp, just static. The first time, I assumed it was a glitch. I deleted it. A few weeks later, another appeared. Same thing, static. Then, Mason's voice. Ethan. I deleted that one too. Then another arrived. Ethan. I stopped opening them. But they kept coming. Always at night, always from an unknown sender. And the voice wasn't always Mason anymore. Once, it sounded like my mother. Another time, it sounded like an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. But the worst one was my own voice. The message lasted 6 seconds. I pressed play. Static. Then my voice whispered, Ethan. A pause. Then, don't turn around. I was sitting alone in my bedroom. I didn't move. I didn't turn around. I sat there for almost an hour. Eventually, I looked behind me. Nothing. But my bedroom window was open. I always kept it locked. I checked my security camera the next morning. There was no person outside, no animal, nothing, except at 2:41 a.m. The camera lost connection for exactly 11 seconds. When it came back, my bedroom door was open. I know I had closed it. I know because I always check it before sleeping. After that, I stopped listening to the messages completely. Until last month, I received another one. I almost deleted it without playing. Then I saw the duration, 11 seconds. I don't know why I pressed play. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid anymore. At first, silence, then footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. My blood went cold. Those weren't ordinary footsteps. I knew that sound. I'd heard it 3 years earlier, outside my tent. The footsteps stopped. Then came a whisper. Not Mason, not my mother, not me. A voice I'd never heard before. It said, He's listening. The recording ended. I sat there staring at my phone. Then it buzzed again. Another voicemail. This one was only 3 seconds long. I didn't play it. I deleted it immediately. Then another arrived. And another. I turned my phone off. The next morning, I called Mason. He answered after one ring. Before I could say anything, he asked, Did you get one? I felt my stomach drop. How do you know? He didn't answer. Finally, he said, Because I got one too. What did it say? There was a long silence. Then Mason whispered, It used your voice. I closed my eyes. What did it say? He breathed slowly. It said, Tell Ethan to stop listening. I didn't speak. Then Mason said something I'll never forget. "Ethan, what? I think it's closer now." "What do you mean?" "Last night," he paused, "I heard someone outside my house. I felt cold." "What did they say?" Mason's voice became almost impossible to hear. "They called my name." I didn't respond. Then he said, "And Ethan?" "What?" I recognized the voice. "Whose was it?" He whispered, "Yours." The call ended. Neither of us has spoken about it since. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe fear caused two tired hikers to imagine something that wasn't there. That's the explanation I tell people. It's the explanation I want to believe. But sometimes, just after I fall asleep, my phone buzzes, and I know exactly what is waiting for me. Another voicemail, another voice, another imitation. So if you ever go camping deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and everything outside your tent is completely silent, and someone whispers your name, don't answer. Don't unzip the tent. Don't look outside. And whatever you do, don't call back. Because maybe the voice outside isn't your friend. Maybe it's something that has been listening, learning, waiting. Maybe the first time it calls your name, it's only trying to discover whether you'll respond. The second time, it already knows your voice. And the third time, it doesn't need to imitate anyone anymore. Because it has learned exactly what you sound like. And if the old stories are true, once it has your voice, it doesn't need to stay in the mountains. It can follow you home. It can wait outside your bedroom. It can call you from your own phone. And one night, you may hear yourself whispering from the darkness, "Ethan, come outside." And the worst part won't be hearing your own voice. The worst part will be realizing that the voice is coming from inside your house. The end.